Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping straight into something truly fascinating, our dreams.
They're like these little puzzles our minds create every night, aren't they?
Exactly. And people have been trying to crack that code for, well, forever. So today, we've got a specific dream someone shared, and our mission, if you will, is to explore it.
Right. We're going to look at it through two really influential lenses, Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung.
Hopefully, we can offer you some, interesting ways to think about what might be bubbling up from the subconscious.
Yeah, it's a great way to see how different psychological ideas can light up the same dream, maybe revealing different layers of meaning for the dreamer.
And we'll be using core ideas from both Freud and Jung's approaches to dreams. Okay, so shall we start with Freud?
Let's do it.
Now, many of you curious about dreams probably know this, but Freud saw dreams as, well, kind of like a secret language.
A language for our unconscious mind.
Right, where maybe repressed desires, urges, that sort of thing get expressed through symbols.
Exactly. And for Freud, these symbols often trace back to early experiences, our basic drives. So the first piece of this dream, an old pickup truck that has been sold.
An old pickup truck sold. Okay. Thinking Freudian, what might that point to?
Well, that truck, being old and then sold, it could symbolize a past version of the self.
Oh, interesting. Or maybe like a lost sense of security. A truck feels very practical, dependable.
It does. That reliability factor is key. Selling it could mean shedding an old identity, perhaps one associated with feeling, stable.
Or maybe feeling unequipped now that that reliable workhorse is gone, even if that past self wasn't perfect.
That's a sharp point, feeling unequipped. Freud might definitely see the sale as cutting ties with a past state.
Yeah.
He'd probably ask you, the dreamer, what past identity or what feeling of stability does this resonate with? What have you let go of or maybe felt forced to let go of?
Makes sense. Okay, next element. A dry, barren parking lot with high hills.
Not exactly a picture of abundance, is it?
No, definitely not. So Freud might see this landscape as reflecting feelings of being stuck.
Yeah, stuck or maybe lacking emotional support, nourishment, that kind of thing.
And the high hills around it, does that add something?
It could amplify the feeling, perhaps, a sense of isolation or like being hemmed in by big obstacles.
So following the lost truck, this barren lot seems to visually echo that sense of lack.
I think so. The barrenness really suggests deprivation, maybe mirroring an internal emotional state. Freud might probe. Have you been feeling restricted lately? Unsupported? Is there a part of your life that feels stagnant like this landscape?
Okay. Then the dream continues with walking down a steep slope to run errands. Downhill.
That downward movement.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels important in a Freudian context.
Like facing problems that feel like a literal downward struggle.
Could be. Or maybe burdens, responsibilities that feel heavy pressing down.
And the errands part, just like the mundane tasks of life.
Possibly. Freud might see it as feeling weighed down by daily pressures and obligations. It's interesting, it comes right after the barren landscape, isn't it?
Yeah, like a consequence almost. If you feel unsupported, maybe the daily grind feels harder, more like a downhill slog.
That's a very insightful connection. The sequence suggests that. Freud would likely focus on that feeling of pressure. He'd ask, what challenges feel like a downward struggle right now? What daily tasks feel particularly burdensome?
Right, okay, then a key moment, not being able to find the truck.
Ah, yes. Connecting back to the start.
So if the truck is the past self or security, losing it suggests what? Anxiety?
Anxiety about that lost past, certainly. Or feeling adrift, lost in the present. Maybe even deeper worries about basic security, like the things you counted on, have just vanished.
So Freud prompts the question, do you feel disconnected from who you used to be? Uncertain about where you're going now? What support feels like it's missing?
Exactly. Not finding that key symbol really underlines a potential feeling of being ungrounded. Okay, final element from the Freudian angle. An inner voice telling you to add zeros before and after the license plate number.
Okay, that's specific. Zeros. What would Freud make of zeros?
Well, zero can symbolize emptiness, a void, but also potential, cycles, like a circle.
So the inner voice adding zeros, maybe it's the unconscious trying to fill that void.
That's a very Freudian idea, yes.
Yeah.
Try to create a sense of wholeness or infinity, maybe, where there's a feeling of lack in attempt to compensate.
So maybe ask yourself, what parts of your life feel a bit empty right now, like something's missing? Is your unconscious nudging you towards a fresh start, or maybe trying to create a feeling of completion?
Good questions. Now, let's switch gears. Let's look at this same dream, but through Carl Jung's eyes.
Okay. Jung, he built on Freud, but had his own distinct ideas, right? Like the collective unconscious.
Exactly, and archetypes. Jung thought dreams weren't just about our personal repressed stuff, but also tapped into this deeper, shared human layer of symbols and experiences.
So that old pickup truck again, how does Jung see it differently?
Well, for Jung, it might represent an old identity, sure, but maybe more specifically something like the shadow self.
The shadow, those parts of ourselves we don't always acknowledge.
Precisely. Aspects we might neglect or push away, but which are still part of us, not necessarily bad things, just unacknowledged. Could be positive traits too, even, things we project onto others.
So it's not just lost, it might be ignored. That's a different feel.
It is. Jung might ask,
Yeah.
are there parts of your past self, maybe skills or feelings that you're overlooking? Things that need to be brought back into awareness, integrated into who you are now.
Okay. And the barren landscape with high hills. Jung's take.
It could still signify being stuck or in transition, like with Freud,
Mhm.
but maybe on a more profound psychological level. The hills could be challenges on the path towards what Jung called individuation.
Individuation, that's the journey to becoming a whole, integrated self, right?
Exactly. So the landscape suggests a difficult psychological terrain, maybe pointing to a need for inner work. Does your inner world feel a bit stagnant right now? Or maybe like you're on the edge of a big internal shift?
So it's less about external lack and more about the inner journey. Okay. Then descending the hill to run errands. How does that fit?
Jung might see this through the lens of the hero's journey. It's an archetype.
Oh.
Descending, even to do mundane things like errands, symbolizes taking on challenges, confronting what needs doing for personal growth. It's about engaging with life's demands to move forward on your path.
So actively engaging, even if it feels like going down first. What journeys or challenges do you feel you're undertaking right now? That's the kind of question Jung might pose.
Yes. Then, not being able to find the truck, in Jungian terms.
What does that mean for individuation?
It could actually represent a necessary stage of individuation, letting go of older, perhaps outdated aspects of the self.
So not just anxiety about loss, but maybe progress.
Potentially, yes. Making space for a more authentic, whole self to emerge. One that isn't solely reliant on past identities or what others think. It's about finding security within. So maybe reflect. Are you letting go of old patterns right now, seeking a deeper inner stability?
That reframes it quite significantly. Okay, finally, the zeros again, adding zeros before and after the license plate. Jung's view.
Zero, for Jung, is often linked to wholeness, completion, the self with a capital S, and also life cycles, transitions.
Okay.
Adding them before and after could really emphasize that cyclical nature, or maybe a major transition point.
Yeah.
It might symbolize a growing awareness of your fuller potential, your more complete identity.
The infinite nature of the self, almost.
Something like that.
Yeah,
It could
okay.
point towards feeling like you're at a turning point, becoming more aware of who you truly are and the cycles of your own life.
Wow. Okay, so if we pull back and look at both Freud and Jung, there are some common threads, aren't there?
Definitely. Both perspectives seem to touch on a sense of detachment from something significant in the past.
Yeah, whether it's an old identity, a feeling of security, a time that felt more solid, that feeling of loss seems quite central.
It does, but what's also interesting is that both analyses hint at this unconscious drive towards something new, towards wholeness, maybe new beginnings.
Right, especially with that zero symbolism and the whole journey aspect of the dream. It's not just stuck in loss.
No, it suggests this inherent push to find balance and move forward.
So for you listening, maybe this dream is tapping into a current feeling of loss or perhaps a big transition you're going through.
It invites you to think about what parts of the past might feel unresolved or stuck, and how that might be playing out for you right now. What feels stuck for you?
Yeah. And that idea of adding zeros, what do you feel intuitively needs to be filled within you right now?
It's like that inner voice is highlighting a need for completion, or maybe a totally fresh start on some level.
It really feels like this dream could be a nudge from your own psyche, doesn't it? A prompt to think about making changes, finding a new kind of inner balance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But, dream interpretation is ultimately so personal. Freud and Jung give us these incredible frameworks, these lenses.
But they're starting points, right?
Yeah.
Tools for your own reflection.
Exactly. We really encourage you to keep thinking about this dream, sit with the symbols, and see how they resonate with your own life, your own feelings.
Yeah, let it percolate.
And maybe here's a final thought to leave you with. Could this feeling of something being lost or ending actually be clearing the way, creating the space needed for something entirely new? and maybe even more fulfilling to emerge.